Hi, this is Tom Knezick from Highlands Nursery, and today I'd like to take a minute to talk to you about invasive plants. What really is an invasive plant? I talked to you before about native plants, but invasive plants are, as you can tell, something that kind of takes over the landscape. A lot of times they came from foreign areas, a lot from Europe or Asia. Even Australia, there's invasive plants from Australia, and they were brought to America to be garden plants. A lot of times they were bred to be great garden plants or street trees. They'd have beautiful flowers, great form, they'd grow tall and provide a lot of shade that you wanted in your yard. But what we found out over time with some of these species that were meant to be for the garden is they got out of the garden. They were either, the berries were eaten by birds, or they had rhizomes that spread very, very quickly. And what happened is those things got out of the garden, and because they didn't have any natural predators like deer or rabbits or things that would eat them here, they didn't know what those plants were. They were left uneaten and kind of went out of control. So there was really nothing browsing on them, and they got out of control. There was nothing to take care of them in the wild. And from there, when the deer would come through and eat all the native vegetation and left things like Japanese barberry, they became the entire understory. So now you had a habitat that really didn't support deer, it didn't really support much, but it was the main biome for that area. One of the invasives we have is the Bradford Pear. The Bradford Pear was bred from Callery pear and named for a man whose last name was Bradford. Callery pear is originally from Asia. It was really designed to be a great street tree. It had really good form, had beautiful flowers, as you can see, provided great shade, had great fall color, was nice and green in the spring and summer. Best of all, it was supposed to be sterile. What ended up happening is sometimes those plants would send up other shoots, and the other shoots were not sterile, and then they were pollinated with other pear trees, provided a viable fruit and a viable seed, which then birds would eat, and then as birds traveled around and they'd poop those seeds out, they sprouted in other areas. One of the reasons Bradford pear was really popular was because it grew in a variety of conditions. It could grow where it was wet, it could grow where it was dry. Rocky soil, it could grow in sandy soil, it could grow in clay, it could grow all over the place. So it was perfect if you were a developer and you were going to build a bunch of houses with all the roads. Well, why wouldn't you plant this? Because I could use the same exact tree all over the place in all my developments I was building anywhere. But it became invasive, and then you saw it spread from there because of the birds. And you can see there's this one here. This wasn't planted here. This was something that a bird probably brought and just pooped when it was flying over, sitting in one of the trees in the hedgerow next to my house. And if you look over my other shoulder, well, you can see there's another one. There's actually 3 or 4 more beyond that. These trees weren't planted there, and if you drive around your own neighborhood, if you're in the mid-Atlantic, they're blooming right now. If you see those bright white trees and it looks like a wild area, well, those aren't native. Those weren't planted there. Those were something that was brought there by birds, and it's an invasive plant, and it's crowding out the native vegetation. And there's lots of these things. If you're down south, kudzu is all over the place, and that's an invasive vine that really, it'll actually grow over trees and choke those trees out and kill them, while also not providing much habitat for the native flora and fauna. You have things like Japanese barberry, like I brought up before, is crowding out forest floras all over the mid-Atlantic. Butterfly bush is known for, it's a really popular garden plant, but actually once it gets out of the garden, it can be really invasive because it doesn't have any predators that will eat it and keep it in check, and it'll crowd out understories. Miscanthus grass is another invasive plant. That honeysuckle that smells so sweet during the summer, also an invasive, and there is a native honeysuckle, so if you like honeysuckle, plant the native one. You don't need to use the Japanese honeysuckle because it is invasive, and it will get out of your garden, and then it'll get out of control and spread all over the place. Purple loosestrife, another plant that's really, really beautiful. If you like purple flowers or bluish flowers, it's an awesome looking plant, but it gets out of the landscape, goes into wild areas, and if you go around lakes and ponds, you will see this all over the place. Do me a favor and look up a picture of it, and when you go on a walk around a park with ponds, look out for this stuff, see if it's there. So like I said, it's not planted there. It might look beautiful and you might think it's part of the landscape, but there's a lot of park managers all over the country that are really trying to take care of a lot of this stuff, and they could use your help at least identifying where it is. if you have any on your own property, like I do here, my house is just on the other side of the hedgerow here. Well, if I leave this tree, it's just going to add to the problem. So this weekend, I'm planning on cutting them all down. So at least all the Bradford pears. That's all I have for you today. I hope you learned a little bit about invasive plants. Thank you for listening.